Hello, everybody. My name is Broderick. I'm not sure if you know who I am, but I'm a designer. I also know a little bit of development. I was raised in Dallas, Texas, where I studied school, and I actually don't really know what I studied. I hated school the whole time, and I pretty much wasted the most money and most time in school. So I ended up quitting and was offered a job at a marketing communications company. There I spent 3 years designing and developing from start to finish, working on websites, apps, you name it, for clients. I did that, and I then was offered a job in San Francisco. So I moved everything in like a week, started working, and I worked for a company called AppMaker. And what they did is they basically made it really easy for you to build, anyone to build an app. So if you have a blog or you have a website that has an RSS feed, you can just import it all, and it automatically builds you an iPhone app. The problem with this is it was all templated based. So every app looked the same, right? And then I moved to a company called Swipely. Swipely is a very data-driven company. They have a lot of very interesting ideas, and the company itself is great. They have some problems, and the problems are all the design is focused around data. So they make design decisions and implementation decisions based on what has been proven already. My talk is about facial hair. No, I'm just kidding. I have no experience in that area. My talk's actually about how mobile is the future. I believe that desktops, as we know it, are a thing of the past. I think that in a year, 2 years, a couple years times, the desktop computer, everything is just going to go to be mobile. You're going to be able to connect to screens, TVs, anything, and your brain is going to be the phone. Why? Because your phone's your identity. Your phone carries all your information, be it contacts, be it music, be it videos, anything, right? And this is important because people rely on their phones. You guys carry your phone with you everywhere you go. You walk out the house, you're like, I'm missing something. I feel completely naked right now. It's because you left your phone at home. I'll give you an example. What if you rented a car? If you went to a rental place and you said, I need a car. This is 3 years from now. And you had your phone on you and you plugged it into the car. What if all the mirrors, the steering wheel, pedals, navigation, everything, it took all the information from your phone and brought it to this new car that you've never been in for, never visited, never seen before, and it moved everything, customized it for you. Started playing your radio station, started, if you got into an accident, it would call the cops and say, look, this guy's gotten into an accident, we need, here's his location, for example. But even better, what if your friend said, hey, I want to listen to this song? He plugs his phone in, and it plays his music. But who says plug in anymore, right? Everything's wireless. So we're getting rid of wires. We're getting rid of everything, actually. Not only are we replacing the radio and the speedometer or whatever we decide that the phone can handle, we're replacing TVs and computers and everything because the phone is your hub. It is your brain. So what's important to know is that you have to, when designing something, you have to represent the tools you are replacing. The user has to feel comfortable, have to feel like this is something that they're used to, right? They've been here before. They feel like this is something completely new to them and feel lost. You're not going to know what to do next. You're not going to know what this button does, what this button does. And this leads to skeuomorphism. How real is too real? Skeuomorphism is a derivative of an object that retains ornamental design cues from structure that was necessary in the original. This is important. It's cues, right? It's not let me take this switch and let me copy it over here. Let me bring the textures over here, bring them over here. It's not, well, if I do this, it wouldn't actually do this in real life. Like if I press this switch, it would toggle, right? That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is when you look at it, it looks like a switch. It looks like a toggle. It looks like a button. Nowadays, buttons have gradients and drop shadows, and the reason this is the way they are is because when I look at it, I know it's a button. I know it can be pressed. You press on it, the drop shadow backs away, and it looks like it actually does some sort of indentation. But there's a very fine line between design and over-design. And I feel that you can represent something, but it's not the same thing as replicating something. So you want it to feel comfortable, but you want it to look identical. And why? Because if it gets in the way of your users and the actual function, you're doing something wrong. If your design, if your UI, if your textures, if they distract the user from the actual goal, you're defeating the purpose of your app. So it's very important to stay simple. Every single pixel is processed by your brain. So if you look at something, you see a bunch of textures, you see a bunch of buttons, you see a bunch of interfaces, you see options. Your brain has to sit there and realize it. Now, you don't really notice this because it's a fraction amount of time. But that fraction amount of time is very important because it's going to be the first user's experience. And you're not going to know, like if they walk into the app, they're not going to say, I feel comfortable here. They're going to say, where am I? What is this texture? What does this mean? Why is there a leather texture here when it's supposed to look like a switch? Switches don't have leather. It's also very important when replicating something in real life that you give instant feedback. Now, this feedback doesn't have to be real. It can be faked. For example, Instagram. So when you're creating when you take a photo in Instagram and you upload it, it instantly goes back to the feed. You don't even know that it's uploading. You don't see this uploading. The reason is because they do everything in the background. They don't actually tell you. I mean, they say that it's uploaded complete, but they do it to where you don't actually realize it. And it's because why do you want to make these users wait? Why do you want to say, I'm not going to make this state pressed until something happens, or until my server responds, or until you fake it and handle that all on the back end. The user doesn't care. As long as it works, as long as it's fast, you can send data as slow as you want. Speaking of data, data shows past work. Data shows what has worked in the past or has failed in the past, not what could work, not what could happen. So if you have a switch and you say switches are typically a circle with a boundary box, and you move them like this, right? Data shows that works. That's great, but what if we did something completely different? What if we tried something that nobody's tried before, something that data cannot say work? Now, the problem with that is that big companies, especially companies that I worked with, they don't like that. They say, well, this works, and we're sticking with this because it works. The problem with that is there's no innovation. So it's very key to be unique, take risks, and innovate. You take the data that you have received before, and you learn from it. You say, well, it looks like they're confused with red and green or blue. Like blue looks like enabled, blue made it look like disabled, red looks like disabled. Red means failure, yellow means caution, green means success. Now, you can use those in a more positive way and implement that into your UI. And it's not really how it looks, it's more about how it functions. So you have to make sure that you focus on function over form. But you should still have fun. It's still very important that your app is beautiful. Like I said earlier, you don't want to complicate things. You don't want to hold the user back from saying, how does this work? Is this a button? Is this enabled? Is this disabled? Is this on? Is this off? It should be very clear, and that should be your number one goal. And after that, everything just kind of falls in place. So I know that we wanted to ask like questions at a later time, but I kind of wanted to, I kind of wanted some feedback because skeuomorphism is a very, very big thing nowadays. Like, skeuomorphism is pretty popular, and things like Apple, like Find My Friends or Photo Booth for Apple, they try to replicate this default functionality that you're used to, like a physical photo booth with windows and with curtains and with, a flash on the screen. But is that necessary? Now, I don't think it hurts anybody, but does it add anything? Does it solve a problem? Now, the flash obviously is for brightening the screen, for example. Now, it's cool because it feels like a flash. It's got the bright flash of the screen. You're like, wow, I just took a photo, and there's my photo. But it also serves the purpose of brightening your face, and including light where light may not exist already. And I think that we just have to be very careful about how we present things in our apps and websites, and that we just think about it. We take a step back. I'm sure that you guys are all doing great, and yeah, that's what I have to say.